Yeah, it's a nice relief. One day in the shed, which is good. You thought it was going to be a little bit longer. A real good squad of boat builders, so pretty excited, I think, to get stuck into things like that. Still would have been nice to go yachting yesterday, but be good today, I think. Looking forward to getting out there.
The guys work feverishly, and here she is. As a sailing team, we're super happy to do some round robin racing, and it was a bit of a shock seeing the boat in the situation it was, but super excited to get out there today and get back into it.
Massive faith in the shore crew, resolving any issues as quickly as possible, and that's what we've seen, being sort of 24-hour stand down off the water and then back out there, so they've turned things around really quickly.
What's more exciting is that boat is back and racing, the Defender.
It was a long hot day out there, but yeah, unbelievable to get the boat back on the water. Boat's going like it always has, you know. We're pretty happy with the boat's performance, and it was good to get out there and just run through our day. We can't arrange a race.
Orient Express Racing are retiring the boat.
This is the umpires. France has retired. The race is stopped and awarded to New Zealand.
80 cadence.
After 2 lost races yesterday due to the lower wind limit of 6.5 knots not being achieved, race director Iain Murray has mandated for races 7 and 8 to be completed at the beginning of Day 3 of the Louis Vuitton Cup. What this scheduling means is a packed day of racing for the spectators at the free-to-enter race villages and fan zones, with some 6 races to savour. The terrific news that broke after racing had concluded yesterday was the return of Emirates Team New Zealand today after a superb effort from the whole shore and build team, led by Sean Regan, shore team manager. The highly experienced team worked round-the-clock shifts to ensure that Taihoro was ready for racing today, and the Kiwis will be looking to thoroughly test their AC-75 at race pace with their first match, race 8 on the schedule, against Orient Express Racing Team. Other key matchups today include the delayed Luna Rossa Prado Pirelli versus American Magic, and a really key battle between Alinghi Red Bull Racing and Ineos Britannia. The pecking order after today will be revealing, with several teams knowing that they are in the fight of their lives to secure a place in the Louis Vuitton Cup semi-final. With such a good lineup, it's all eyes on the weather today in Barcelona, with Iain Murray briefing this morning that he was expecting a more gradient wind today of 8 to 11 knots from the east-southeast, less reliant on the thermal breeze. An interesting speed test in store. At the start, American Magic cleverly sails clear of Luna Rossa's wingwash before jibing to follow, and then sets up in a leeward but lead position to start well in the port quarter of the line. Luna Rossa is forced to tack off after an uncustomary lacklustre start and heads to the right boundary. At the crossback, it's a huge gain to the Americans, who slam an immediate cover on. Split tactics, with the Americans playing the left boundary and the Italians the right boundary, and in this breeze, it feels like the race is in the hands of the wind gods. At the top of the 1.4 nautical mile windward leg, both boats round alternate marks with the delta of 2 seconds just shaded by American Magic. Too close to call, and it's split tactics down the first run as the race committee shortened the course legs to 1.2 nautical miles. Luna Rossa sees a small lead at the top of the run, but a great jibe on the left boundary, looking downwind, brings Magic back on starboard to regain the lead. At the first leeward gate, Magic has a 3-second lead as both boats set up for initial split tactics off the leeward mark exit. At the crossback, Luna Rossa takes Magic's stern and crosses to the right side of the course, and it's a decisive move. The Italians get into better pressure and come back on a beautiful lift, whilst the Americans struggle with a poor tack on the left boundary. All Luna Rossa now, and they round the second windward mark with a 20-second lead. American Magic close up the gap, bouncing off the right boundary, looking downwind, and look to have similar VMG running angles, but it's Italy who round the second leeward mark with a lead still out at 20 seconds. Up the final windward leg, there is great flight control and trim from Umberto Molinares and Andrea Tessé on Luna Rossa, who allow helms Jimmy Spithill and Francesco Bruni to completely control the race, keeping a side cover on Patriot and rounding the windward mark with an increased delta of 25 seconds. No mistakes down the final downwind leg. Luna Rossa keeps a jibe cover on American Magic, minimizes the maneuvers going boundary to boundary, and crosses the finish line with a 24-second winning margin. It was a classy win by the Italians, as they look absolute perfection out there. A speed test for the French, a structural boat test for the returning Kiwis, but it's disaster at the start for the French, who appear to have an issue and don't enter the start box. For the Kiwis, it's a chance to give their AC-75 a full shakedown unopposed, and they look just fine. At the point of the Emirates Team New Zealand start, the race committee are informed that Orient Express had retired and the race is awarded to the Kiwis. One of the matches of the day, indeed one of the matches of the opening round robin, once again we see the starboard entry boat, Britannia, avoid the windwash of the crossing Swiss before the initial jibe. Light air tactics from the British executed well, who on the lead back to the line jibe right in front of Alinghi Red Bull Racing and send a vicious wingwash down onto boat 1, who immediately fall off the foils. Britannia starts unopposed and builds into a massive early lead of over 1,000 metres. By the top mark, Ineos Britannia's lead was out to 2 minutes and 10 seconds, and the race committee shortened the legs to just 1.2 nautical miles. Ineos Britannia, sailing in an almost unassailable lead, showed slick maneuvers, great jibes downwind, good consistent tacks upwind, and with flight control from Bledon Mon and Lee McMillan on point, just had to keep from falling off the foils to score the win. With the wind dropping all the time, this wasn't easy, but Britannia rounds the second windward mark still with a lead close to 1,000 metres. Translated into the important currency of the Cup, time, that's an advantage of 1 minute and 54 seconds, with Alinghi Red Bull Racing praying for a weather miracle. The Swiss team's prayer almost materialised when up the final beat the wind dropped to below 6 knots, putting Ineos Britannia very close to touchdown on their first tack. The British just managed to keep it going as Alinghi Red Bull Racing rounded the leeward mark 2 minutes and 36 seconds behind. The Swiss certainly haven't given up, but the British click into a couple of knots of extra breeze in the second half of the final windward leg, and round the final gate, with the race committee shortening the final leg to just 0.9 nautical miles, still with the lead at 2 minutes and 26 seconds. The British endured an initial heart-stopping jibe on the final leg, but on the next, going from port jibe to starboard, fall off on the exit and sit in displacement as the Swiss come charging down the course, eating into the lead relentlessly. The British eventually speed builds just enough and get back up on the foils, to jibe on the port ley line to secure the win by 1 minute and 25 seconds. A great victory for the British. The Americans are looking both to make a point and score a point after a loss to the Italians in their first race of the day. The French, meanwhile, appear to have sorted out their issue that forced their retirement from their scheduled race with the Kiwis. An interesting start with Tom Slingsby on Magic, avoiding the wingwash area from the French completely by tacking around, having entered the pre-start box, and at the lead back adopted the advanced position, with the French hunting them to well outside the port marker, and down towards the port boundary. Both boats are in a desperate fight to stay on the foils, giving up distance for speed before the tack back. American Magic make the move stick first, before building speed and heading back to the start line, dipping at the starboard end, starting cleanly and well ahead. This race is going to be all about staying on the foils with the wind right on the lower limit. At the first windward mark, American Magic was some 41 seconds ahead, with Orient Express more than in touch and plenty of jeopardy down the first run. The race committee shortened the legs to 1 nautical mile as Magic held a distance lead of just over 400 metres and rounded the first leeward mark just 28 seconds to the good. Big gain for the French, who continue to make ground in the first part of the second windward leg, clicking into some good pressure to the left of the course. This race is on. Tack for tack up the course, Magic just stays ahead and round the second windward mark with a lead down to 13 seconds. The Americans take the left side of the run initially and click into good pressure, which the French are forced to follow, but at the final leeward mark, a poor leyline call and a messy mark rounding whilst in the considerable wingwash of the Americans sees Orient Express off the foils, effectively gifting the race to American Magic. A gift for the Americans, and from their no mistakes from Tom Slingsby and Paul Goodison, who complete the final windward leg totally unopposed, concentrating intently on ride height and flight time whilst the French struggled back onto their foils at the bottom of the course. Great pressure spotting from the afterguard, Magic begins the final downwind over 2,000 metres ahead and bring Patriot home at pace to secure the win by nearly 2 legs. An interesting light airs lineup in store here, and right from the start, the two teams activate circling tactics we haven't seen before, disengaging to avoid the dirty air of each other's wing wash but then coming back aggressively in the final lead into the line, with Ineos Britannia doing a great job to leeward and forcing Luna Rossa into the first tack. Early advantage to the British, who let the Italians go to the far right boundary, and when the two boats eventually come back, Ineos Britannia makes a smart cross. No difference in boat speeds here, but a slow tack by the British on the right boundary hands an advantage to the Italians, who take the lead in the final quarter of the first leg. At the top gate, Luna Rossa is some 25 seconds ahead as the British rue that boundary tack. With the wind lightening all across the course, Ineos Britannia falls off the foils in the final approaches to the leeward mark and have to speed build far to the left side of the course, looking downwind, in order to get back on the foils. A smart tack around once on the foils brings Britannia back into the race, but at 2 minutes and 5 seconds down, over 1,000 meters, this is going to be a tough ask to come back.
Got to give a massive shout out to Sean Mason, aka Geese. It's his 67th birthday today, and it's great having him here with us.
This time next year, Geese.
Challenging day today. We were first up in race 1 against Luna Rossa. The guys on board did an awesome job executing the plan A and getting a nice tight to leeward start there. And very quickly off the first boundary jumped out to about 150-meter lead. There's probably a little bit of wedge in the breeze in the race course, and there was left in the left and right in the right. And probably more so than not, the righty was, as you're looking upwind, was 65% of the way across. And so when you were to the right, you were able to stay in the righty longer. We got around them, and then they got around us, and kind of sat in front of us by about 160 meters. So without question, the two things that stand out was the start and Luna Rossa's upwind boat speed. So some good things for us to get better at. The next race against the French was an interesting one to watch. The French did a very good job staying close in the race. It's a fast boat, which you can see. And we did a good job of controlling the pre-start from a really hard position. Tommy did a really good job of just turning up on their breeze and getting them down speed enough that a tack was never on. From there, we tacked across them and speed build, but halfway through that race, they were 90 meters behind us. Yeah, that was nervous times. I mean, these races, you're never out of it. It's swinging and roundabouts, and if you come off the foil as the lead boat, there's really not a lot you can do to protect against it, other than just continue with your processes on board and continue to execute as efficiently as you possibly can.
So yeah, 2-race day, first one against the Swiss, second against the Italian. Quite a difficult southeasterly breeze, quite up and down, and we managed to get the Swiss off the foils in the first one, and we pulled out quite a big lead until we then fell into a hole on the last run and came off the foils, but we popped back up and took the win in that one. Then in the second race started, and we were really happy with our approach and sort of got a nice tight leeward on Prada, made the first cross, and then unfortunately they crossed at the top of us. Frustrating to give that win to Rossa when we had them off the line on the first cross, but overall still good positive day, and we're gaining some momentum.